Hello, I'm Claudia Monlui, and this is TV30. Today we will discuss mental health, and with us we have two experts who are well placed to take us on this journey and to peel back the layers of mental health. Welcome to GIS, and I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves to our viewers.
Good morning. Thank you, Claudia. I am Mrs. Sasha Japier-James, the Employee Assistance Program Manager with the Department of the Public Service. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. The name is Patrick Ferron, F-E-A-R-O-N. I'm a clinical mental health counselor, and I work part-time with the Employee Assistance Program.
Now, I know that the both of you have been exposed to this area for a number of years, and I know that your expertise is going to benefit us richly, and we really want to tap in this by first posing the question, Mrs. James, what is mental health? And I know that there is a theme tied to this month's observance. Perhaps you can elaborate on this as well.
Sure, and that's a very good place to start. So for this year, May's Mental Health Awareness theme is turning awareness into action. And this is really a theme that encourages policymakers to move away from the conversations, merely speaking about mental health matters, to actually advocating for change. So when we speak about mental health, this is really a state of well-being where an individual is able to deal with the normal stresses of life. And when we speak about mental health, again, it places somebody to be able to deal with whatever challenges that that individual may be faced with on a day-to-day basis.
And of course, you mentioned the well-being. So as we go through the day, there are many challenges that would impact on us, our state of mind, Mr. Foron. And can you take it from there?
Yes, when we look at the concept of mental health, where some people may get confused thinking, oh, this is some sophisticated thing that it's hard for me to understand. We're really talking about our emotional well-being, our psychological well-being, our social well-being. For example, you think about persons dealing with the aspects of emotions, the feelings. How do you deal with these feelings that we have, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, grief? And you think about the concept of your psychological well-being. How do we think? How do we reason? How do we strategize? And you think about our abilities to be functional in our workplace, in our local domestic environment, in the broader society. It's all about functionality, emotionally, psychologically, and socially.
Now, I know, Ms. James, that we don't, as a society, we don't normally bring children into this whole spectrum of mental health. How do we highlight that kids also have, their own place in the discussion?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you would ask this question, because most times when we do these types of discussions, when we have these types of discussions rather, and we engage in our psycho-ed, we tell the parents, the adults, that children need to be part of these discussions. Many times you would hear individuals say to a child, why is it that you're stressed? What are you talking about that you're stressed? But when we look at mental health, as Mr. Ferron would have highlighted, we're looking at the emotional, the psychological, even your physical health would impact your mental health. So children need to be made aware of what mental health is, so that they can then be able to deal with their own mental health challenges. When they go to school, they face various problems like bullying, and these issues can impact a child's mental health. And Claudia, now in this current era, children are well versed with the information. So we need to engage them in such discussions, so that when they encounter a problem, then they're able to know, this is how I care for my mental health.
Very important. And what are some of the signs that of poor mental health slash someone is struggling? What are some of those signs that the layperson can pick up? Because sometimes we would casually think, okay, this person has a bad personality,
Right.
and I'm always clashing with this person, and this person is not a team player. You know, we generalize things like that, but we don't zoom in on what what is really impacting the individual. How do we, as you say, you want to take action? How do we understand and then translate that into taking action?
Okay, sure. So I'm going to make it as simple as possible. You know, sometimes you may interact with an individual and you realize that the individual has started to withdraw from others. There's isolation. Sometimes this individual would lose interest in just daily activities, things that a person would generally love before, and all of a sudden you realize that this person no longer is interested in these activities. These are some of the examples that, or signs rather, that an individual may be experiencing poor mental health. You may find difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating. We also have some physical symptoms that can also be mistaken for a medical illness, and in our fields we call it psychosomatic. An individual may go to the doctor thinking and feeling that they have some medical issue, and it's really high stress levels, tension, headaches, and so many other symptoms that an individual may experience to give you an indication that this person is experiencing poor mental health.
Mr.
And,
Ferran?
and of course, you think about what we witness in the society around us every day. There are persons who are dealing with significant grief and loss in their lives, and the overwhelming sadness. For some persons, it's a hopelessness. For some people, it's even dealing with emotions such as anger. You know, some people may fly off the handle all the time. It doesn't take anything to trigger somebody to start screaming, and sometimes these may be observable in the domestic environment, and maybe family members will begin to say, but Junior was not always like that, Billy was not that way. What is happening? Is something going on that we don't know about? Usually there will be some signs that the person is no longer functioning the way the person used to function. Is not, as Mrs. James was saying, it's not anything too scientific to come up against and to see and to witness, but to recognize, yeah, in the basic areas of functionality, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, physically, something is amiss, and there generally will be signs that the functionality is not there. So you know that something is going on.
In the face of this, what does the person who makes the observations do in a very sensitive way? And the other question, which is closely linked to that, is how is it handled in the face of a stereotype, which is, it still exists, that, you know, mental health comes with, you know, this stereotype that, you know, you're almost at the point of, you know, being placed in the mental hospital and so on. People think of extreme situations when the term comes to mind. And, you know, as you experts know, this brings, you know, fear and reticence.
Right. Now, we did mention that the theme is turning awareness into action. We have been educating the masses, we've been providing information, and I believe it's time for us to really translate that information to action. And I'm hearing you ask, what can that individual who's recognizing that somebody is experiencing mental health challenges, what can that person do? First of all, anybody, and I always like to highlight that, anybody can assist somebody who is experiencing mental health challenges. You don't have to be a mental health practitioner like Mr. Ferran and myself. If you recognize that an individual that you're working with, a family member, is experiencing any of these challenges, what you can do is you provide that support. First of all, people need a listening ear. And sometimes we think it's so complicated, Claudia, but it's not that complicated. If you are realizing that this individual is behaving a little differently, begin the conversation. So, Claudia, I realize that you're not your normal self. Is something wrong? How can I assist you? How can I provide you with some sort of support? And if at all you're not fully equipped, and most times we understand that the layperson may not be fully equipped, but there are support services that you can refer them to. And it's as simple as this. If you're not able to say anything, Mr. Ferrin mentioned earlier on, these days a lot of people are experiencing grief and loss and so many other challenges. You don't necessarily have to say anything. So Mr. Ferrin, for example, might be going through something. I can just be here with him, listen to him, show him that I am here to support. And that often does a lot for somebody. And of course, whilst I do that, I make the appropriate referral. And at the EAP, for those of you who do not know, the EAP is the Employee Assistance Program Unit with the Department of the Public Service, and it's a work-based intervention program that provides psychosocial support services to government employers and their immediate families. And let me add, that's the best part, it is absolutely free. So you can make the referral to us and so many of the other support services.
Okay. Can you give us a little more information for the benefit of persons who would want to access the service?
Sure.
Is it just for public servants?
It is for public servants and their immediate family members. So if you are a public servant, your sister, essentially your close family members, siblings, parents, and sometimes we go as far as cousins, but it's immediate family members. And you can call us at 468-2269 or 468-2260.
Okay. Very importantly, there is the intervention of and the service of counseling. But then again, counseling comes sometimes with some apprehension. Is there anything that you can say to allay the concerns of persons who would want to come forward for counseling? Of course, in other countries, it is well established. Everybody has a shrink, but in the Caribbean and in St. Lucia, you go for counseling or you go for sessions. One-on-one sessions with quote-unquote a shrink, and again you're faced with this stereotype.
Let me take this on. One of the things in most societies is where there is that stigma associated with going in for help with anything sort of resembling mental health challenges. We want persons to understand that the need for mental health support or counseling is no different from, let's say somebody is playing football and they break a limb or something happens that they need to be rushed to a doctor, a medical doctor. It's the same principle. We are all made of the same material, and what generally happens, there are issues going on within us when we go through stress and stressful situations.
Hold that thought, we'll go to a break and come right back.
Okay.
No development is possible without change, and St. Lucia is developing. We are moving on up. That is why we are ready to leave the Privy Council behind and put all our trust in the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ. Why CCJ? If you had the choice to pay an exorbitant amount of money to seek justice from the Privy Council or to go to the CCJ, where it's more affordable and where they could better understand your culture, your values and beliefs, because we are all one people in the Caribbean, which would you choose? Exactly. CCJ belongs to all of us.
Welcome back. Mr. Ferran, we'll go right back to you as you were breaking down the stigma.
Yes. So hopefully everybody can gradually begin to see that there's nothing to be embarrassed about or to be afraid of, that I'm going in for counseling. What is this all about? The counselor is going to develop a counseling relationship with the client. The counselor is going to meet the client where the client is, and the counselor is going to be talking and eliciting information as to what the person might be going through, what the person would have been experiencing, how the person would have been interpreting what would have been happening, and what would be the triggering effects in the person's system. Now, many times persons are afraid to go in for counseling because they say, I don't want to tell anybody my business, because I'm a private person. One of the things that many people do not understand about counseling, when you go in to see a counselor, the ethical standards regulate and demand, and we live by it, that it is confidential in every sense of the word. So nobody has to go into counseling thinking, well, I have some significant things impacting me. I want to talk, I want to share, because I know if I talk about it, I can be helped, but I don't know. It's between the counselor and the client, and it is strictly confidential. And the persons who have braved the path to go in for their counseling, they recognize, wow, this is so much easier than I thought, because I just need somebody to share what I'm going through with and to get the help and the support I need. And pretty soon persons realize, wow, yeah, I wish I had known this earlier. So it is something that everybody should gradually see. Yeah, it is not the complicated challenge that it might appear to be. There's nothing to be afraid of. Go in, come in, and get the help that you need.
That is very true, and I realize that Mrs. James wants to add to that point.
Yes, it's just something that I normally say to people to help you to reduce the stigma. If you are sick, you go to a hospital. So if you're experiencing any mental health challenge, why not go to see a counselor or psychologist? It's as easy as this. And when we look at it that way, it will be a lot easier for us to break the stigma and begin to have these open discussions about our mental health.
What about the workplace and creating safe environments, especially with heads of departments who have that leadership and motivational role in terms of dealing with line staff on a day-to-day basis? At that level, what would you like to see happening? I know we have EAP, which is a significant step in the public service, somewhere to go, but of course we have the private sector as well.
I think it has to, first of all, start with the realization that every single person at some point in their life will go through a challenge that might impact their mental health. And just last year, the theme for Mental Health Awareness Month was it's time to prioritize mental health in the workplace. And that tells you that all across the world, people are recognizing that our workspaces need to be, safer and more encouraging for people to be able to share what they're experiencing. So as an HOD and a head of department, a supervisor, it's important for them to equip themselves with the necessary information to be able to identify when a staff is not operating at the optimal, not because they're complacent, but because they are experiencing poor mental health. And I believe when we examine it that way, when we utilize that strategy, it will help to create safer spaces for employees.
I know, yes, Mr. Fernandez,
Yes,
go ahead.
just one thing I'd add to that discussion regarding the question, the workplace and stress. And there was a recent study done in Germany, and the study specifically targeted workplace stress, chronic conditions, especially cardiovascular conditions, and sleeplessness. They call this the triple factor. Now, if any workplace is stressful, and we're not talking about just physical work to do, but emotional stress, psychological stress, social stress, any workplace that is stressful, it is incumbent on the powers that be to do something about it, because it is detracting from the quality of life of the persons who are there. So workplace stress, sleeplessness, And anything that has to do with any chronic condition, it's a triple factor coming against persons. And so what do we have power over? Well, we can do something about our environment.
Yes.
What can the HODs or the managers and the leaders do to lessen the stressors in the workplace environment? That is critical. And if individuals, employees are going through situations where they're already dealing with chronic cardiovascular conditions and they're not sleeping well, then so much the more is the need at that point for intervention, counseling intervention to help persons deal with these situations. Very, very important.
And our discussion is quickly winding down. However, I wanted to bring in the perspective of our diet, what we eat, what we drink, just to add to the sleep component, what we might use recreationally that might impact our mental health.
That's a very good one. I will start, and of course,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrin can supplement that. We mentioned earlier on that even the physical forms part of your mental health. We're individuals with several dimensions: the spiritual, the emotional, psychological, physical, occupational, even environmental. And we have to recognize what we eat, how we treat our body physically will impact our mental health. So even and some people, of course, might disagree with that, but even the use of substances, so the alcohol, the drugs, the marijuana, many people in our society engage in substance misuse. These can impact your mental health. So it's important for us to eat well, have get enough rest and sleep. And note I'm saying rest and sleep because they're different. All of these would help us to, take care of the physical. And the physical, when you're well physically, it contributes to good mental health.
Can you clarify what's the difference between rest and
Rest and
sleep? I always thought they were one and the same.
No, they're not. So when you're sleeping, you are somewhat not conscious, not aware of what's happening with you. You're sleeping. Some people can engage in rest. Stress is where your body is in a relaxed state. You're totally aware of what is happening around you, but you're not actually sleeping. So even if sometimes I hear people say, I cannot sleep, but you can rest. So you lie down in a quiet place, and yes, you're fully aware of what is happening around you, but your body is relaxed, you're resting. Yes?
Yes. Let me just add to,
Interesting.
let me add to, again, based on the question you asked. But so much of what we can do is free, you talk about getting your sleep and eating properly. No, so I mentioned this the other day. Somebody said, but dark chocolate is expensive. But somebody noted that dark chocolate, it has the capacity to release one of the very important, what we may call helpful hormones, the happy hormones, the good hormones within us, endorphins. Just eating a piece of, so Father's Day is coming up. Buy your dad a piece of dark chocolate. I don't know how many moms got that for Mother's Day. But here's something. The body itself is capable of releasing the feel-good hormones like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. These are hormones that they're freely produced in the body. Exercising, walking, talking, hugging a family member, having a pet, laughing, going to, just doing something pleasurable, aerobics, you name it. All of these are released.
For example, the beach is sometimes very helpful to some people. Walks outdoors are also very helpful. But we live in this technological era now, and as the saying goes, everybody is
locked into a smartphone.
Their smartphone, and in some cases it causes a disintegration of the kind of cohesiveness that the society once had, where we looked out for each other. And perhaps you might want to make a call for us to almost start to look out for each other again, since it's mental health is a holistic concern. Perhaps we could conclude on that note.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, it takes one person to support another. And a lot of the times when people are experiencing mental health challenges, if they have at least one person, and that's what we call the support system, it helps to keep them, in a better place. So we encourage the public, we encourage our society to look out for each other. If you're realizing that somebody is looking differently, or the person is saying things that they would not normally say, check in on that individual. One call, one dialogue can, make a difference. We often say, in St. Lucia, we're a village, a community. But as you said, with technology, we're slowly moving away from that. But I dare say we can get back to that place of looking out. Sometimes even at work, Mr. Ferron would ask me, have you had lunch? That's looking out for me,
Yes.
Yes. So we
it
can
really
actually
helps.
use the technology to look out for each other.
Of course, of course.
Mr. Fern,
Yeah.
your take on it?
Yes, I just like to sum up what we've been talking about by saying we are all there for one another. We're in this environment. We're social creatures. We're creatures of emotions. We're made in the image of God. We have heart, soul, mind, strength component to us. Let's be there for one another, because so much of mental health and mental wellness and well-being has to do with how we treat one another, how we look out for one another. Take care of ourselves, yes, but we're equally concerned about our fellow men, our fellow women, and we are there existing together. Let's help one another, look out for one another, take care of one another.
And on this very inspiring note, I would like to thank Mrs. Sasha Jean-Pierre James, EPA Manager, and Mr. Patrick Ferron, Counselor, for coming in to discuss mental health. And of course, May is almost gone, but I dare say that every month and every day is mental health day. Let us just keep at the forefront that this is an important component of healthy living. I am Claudia Mondley, on behalf of the team, saying goodbye.